Welcome to the Underground. Today is Sunday, November 23rd, and this is the third installment in the series Ancient Kemet and Other African Contributions to Astrology. If you're new here, welcome to the EarthtoneS channel. I am your hostess, Kakala Moon. Please consider subscribing to the channel, hit the like button, and by all means, share the video. We're going through an initiation of sorts as a collective, and it is my opinion that we are going through this transformation. And we are learning about the path of the sun through the underworld during winter 2025. So let's get into part 3. And as I share my screen, we're going to find our place in time and recap where we were in the last video. So in the last video, we learned about the importance of symbolism. We also learned about the architects of the archetypes. I believe I transposed those words last time, but we learned that the ancients were aware that time moved in a spiral rather than linear. And so we saw where the Temple of Dendera's uh, zodiacal wheel on the ceiling shows a procession. And so we also saw Kanzu and Heru represent the sun and the moon, and the four Herus or the four suns is listed as such. We also saw there that the two ladies, or we learned rather in the last video about the two ladies. And I'm sipping on coffee. I'm gonna take a sip of that. Hopefully, y'all have something to hydrate with. Excuse me, I'm also suffering from allergies, so it's allergy season. And although we didn't mention the names of the two ladies, Wajet, the hooded cobra of Lower Kemet, and Nebhet, the vulture of Upper Kemet, are being unified by King Narmer, who was seen as a leader among various tribes and migrating peoples to the interior. And Narmer collaborated with King Jojer and his priest Imhotep to unify the land. And we're learning the importance of the symbology that's emerging as a result of these peoples migrating. And most of them belong to the coastal regions of ancient Kemet, or not ancient Kemet, but the continent of Africa. And they are many of them tradespeople and migrating factions. But King Jojer and his priest Imhotep is collaborating with Norma, and we're learning the importance of how Ma'at is being centralized here. But they brought offerings and to the temples, and they performed secular and regular rituals. And here we are learning how we have come up with a lot of the terminology and etymology of a lot of the words that we use to include the word spiritual. And here we have the path of the soul, which ends or begins with the closest orb to the earth being the moon, which is indicative of the womb, mother, and where we get all of these terms that we can spend a whole lot of time on. But the moon and the word star is the root behind many words. We have young stars, we have cis stars, we have even moon stars. These are the lunatics that we call monstars. We have uh, uh, so many that I don't have a list. So you can use your imagination or just come up with some words that end in star. But this is an identifier when we're talking about the characters in our lives. But start is the root word, the star rather, is the root word to beginning to the word start. The word solar identifies the system where the sun is central, SOL, the solar system, and the sun of the human body is the soul system, the spirit incarnate, and the omega, of course, being the end, but it is also close in relation to the symbology that is representative of Ma'at, the scales of Ma'at, which is the sign of Libra. But here I am asking or would like to ask you to look up in the night sky. And for millennia, humanity has been captivated by its silent grandeur. But what if the very language we use to describe our fate, the intricate language of astrology, was born not from serene contemplation, but from a terrifying global catastrophe? Imagine a time 4,500 years ago, between 2,500 and 2000 BCE, when our planet was rocked by an event so profound, perhaps a massive asteroid impact, airburst is what is suspected, similar to what took place in Chelyabinsk, Russia in 2013, that flattened approximately 50 kilometers of forest. Or it could have been some type of sudden climate shift because after the Younger Dryas, there was a cycle of several asteroid impacts that took place over this period of time. Now, in the last video, we went through a millennia in like 20 minutes. So here we are in the millennia 3000 BC. Well, actually, we're in 2000. We were in 3000 in the last video, but we're in 2000 going into 1000 BC. But this sudden shift plunged civilizations into chaos, into Esfet, which is the opposite of Ma'at. And this was a true global watershed period. In Europe, people were just entering the Bronze Age. So whatever catastrophe that took place after the Younger Dryas sparked what is believed to be the Great Flood. So uh, it is pretty much established that this was an actual historic event. But people are moving around in Europe and China, the great Jiangsu, if I can say that properly, culture was in transition and giving way to new urban centers like the Shemao culture. Meanwhile, great powers like the Akkadian Empire and Mesopotamia was in decline and yielding control to new groups alongside this collapse, as well as the collapse of the Indus Valley empires. So you have the Dravidians in decline in their the height of their time, but from the Nile to Mesoamerica, humanity faced an existential crisis, and their desperate answer was to turn their gaze to the stars, which was the only constant in the world that had gone into, again, Isfat, into chaos. And they sought patterns and predictions and a divine order to restore Ma'at and Dharma in the Indus Valley. To understand this astronomical or the astronomical solution that followed, we must first recognize the central anchor of ancient wisdom, ancient Kemet or Africa. Long before Erebus scattered global order, Kemet was a master celestial timekeeping, or they were master celestial timekeepers, and the essential source of the mythological archetypes that we are developing around this time. Kemet's entire civilization revolved around Ma'at, cosmic truth and order. So the crisis of the catastrophe was a crisis of time, striking at the heart of their calendar, which was calibrated to the time star, Sopdet, or Sirius as we know it, which controls the flooding of the Nile. And the threat struck at the core of their spiritual king, Osiris or Wazir, who was the god or god of the annual cycle. The Neset Biti is what they call the pharaoh, but the god of the annual cycle, the god of agriculture. So in the heavens, Wazir being resurrected was embodied by the constellation Sa, and Sa is also Sa Ra, which is where we get the name Sarah. But that's for another video where it is suggested that it should be Sarat or Sarah with a T, because that's how they named the females. But we also know this constellation as Orion. But chaos threatened the region and time itself. So to secure order, Kemetic astronomers turned to the anchor of the circumpolar stars, and these stars never set. Ursa Major, the bull's thigh, served as the unmoving metaphor for the unchanging soul of the king and the concept of Ma'at that we saw in the wheel of the Temple of Dendera that I mentioned, that thigh. I really couldn't point it out because I didn't have a pointer. But this celestial anchor is the north, or in the north rather, was the starting point for mapping the entire cosmos. By establishing a fixed, non-moving center, Kemet could precisely define the four cardinal points that we also saw with the four Herus and the four Khonsus. And so from these four cardinal points, they were able to track the great fixed stars like Regulus, Antares, Fomalhaut, and Aldebaran, which governed the rest of the sky. Thus, the system of Ma'at became the blueprint for the universal cosmic map. And in ancient India, the Dravidian people who had already migrated there millennia before, who would also become the Vedas, also responded, utilizing their own time-tested precise astronomy focused on the nakshatras or the lunar mansions, demonstrating a global imperative fueled by this collective trauma that they were all experiencing. Now, the sheer scale of the celestial upheaval demanded a response that reached across the oceans to Mesoamerica even. And so during this critical transition, the Olmec civilization was at the height of its power, simultaneously charting the same troubled sky. Like the Dravidians, the Olmec were masterful timekeepers. They laid the foundation for the legendary Maya calendar, creating the sophisticated cycles that would later allow for the prediction of celestial events, including the famous eclipse table in the Dresden Codex. So their intense focus on cycles mirrored the desperate urgency felt across the globe. The existence of such highly accurate yet independently developed systems in both hemispheres proved one thing, and that is that there was a major celestial event compelled which compelled these separate civilizations to devote immense resources to creating these celestial pantheons. So the genius of these astronomical systems was not accidental. We must acknowledge a critical reality of the era: extensive established trade routes, which ensured that these great civilizations were interdependent of one another. So they were already traveling, and they were navigating the globe. But the concepts and techniques developed in Kemet, the mythological bedrock of Ma'at, could and likely did flow along these routes. Therefore, the system that arose was a global synthesis, which is what we show here, where ancient Kemet African served and Africa served as the essential source of the archetypal and spiritual foundation. The crisis forced this consolidation of wisdom. This global exchange culminated in Mesopotamia, but the foundation of that system was African, while the Babylonians provided the necessary mathematical vessel. Although they were Africans as well, they had their own culture. They were establishing their own uh, writing system at this time. But they were the mathematical vessel. The soul of the system, however, was Kemetic. So the formalized zodiac became the mathematical shell, but the archetypes it encased were rooted in ancient Kemet's pursuit of Ma'at. The four fixed stars, the ancient guardians, archangels who watched over the globe, were mathematically anchored to this new celestial map of the stars. The core struggle of Osiris or Wasir was to maintain balance, harmony, order, truth, justice, reciprocity, and propriety. Uh, so this became the timeless story of the signs, the 12 segments of the fruit of life, living out these principles, which applied to the king at this particular time, but ultimately applied to the lives of the people in the land and the foundation for natural law in our lives individually and collectively. So this astrological map we use today is not a passive reflection of the cosmos. It is about the scar left by these catastrophes that drove these people into this healing process. It is the enduring testament to the scientific and spiritual resolve of multiple ancient cultures who looked to the heavens, anchored by by the genius of ancient Kemet, and to find the divine order that they called Ma'at. So the history of astrology is the history of the human survival. It is a story of how global crisis led to the creation of the most powerful guideposts, being the stars and the guardian mythos known to man that we established. So during these times, we had people creating, especially the priesthood, creating prose and poetry and all types of melancholy types of writings as they contemplated and pontificated over their lives and over mortality and immortality. And these writings made their way into our religious and most sacred texts, like the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads and the Quran and the Pentateuch, as well as the Helios Biblios, which is the book of the sun, most commonly known as the Bible. And so, as these beautiful writings made their way, some of them became most profound and popular in our modern day times, such as the 23rd Psalm. I learned that by heart when I was 7 years old, although I'm not in organized religion anymore, I still know it. But it goes, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And as we know, many of the pharaoh or Neset Biti were mummified and buried with their crook and the flail crossed over the heart. And for us, we have our hands placed over our solar plexus, meaning the life force, the light in our body has been extinguished. And so to the left of the first image under the words, we have the uh, uh, difference between upper and lower Kemet. And I transpose them, so forgive me, but upper Kemet representative of uh, of uh, of Nephet, where lower Kemet, Nephet, where we have the higher sun representative of higher consciousness, the beginning, the rebirth, and the Ankh, which represents fertility and consciousness and rebirth. And then you have the lower sun, which is the sunset. Over to the left, sunrise, to the right, sunset, which is where we are in the west, the Amenti, the Valley of the Kings, which is where this passage, which is what the passage is based on. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the kings, the valley of the shadow of death. And so, yes, this was all based on the king. And so here we have the judgment relief with Brother Ani going through the duat and all of the characters there. And as he approaches the threshold, he is supported by his wife. And after they cross the threshold, as you can see, they are relieved of their garments. And I forget, I read it before, or I heard it from one of our scholars, the explanation behind the change, but that would be uh, understood if you look at the fact that we cannot take our possessions with us when we go. Above his head is his ba. And then in front of his ba, you have Hathor. And then you have his wife behind him. And you have Anubis, who is Ampu, weighing his heart against the feather of Ma'at. You have Jehuti or uh, Thought, or we can say Mercury. The planet Mercury is able to travel from above ground through the underworld and bring back the messages to the above ground, because the other planets don't really travel to the underworld other than Pluto. So this is the process where he is going through, or after he goes through the weighing of the heart, he goes through the 13 gates. And of course, Jehuti or thought here is recording the results. And those above ground, that image is indicative of these jurors having dominion above ground. And how do I know they have dominion and authority? Because they're all holding the Waz scepter. The Waz scepter is showing their authority and their dominion over the earth. And these are the Netaru, actually, in front of them being Kanzu, who protects Osiris or Osiris or Wazir in the underworld, in the barge as he travels through the darkness, through the night. And then you have Osiris in different forms, I believe. I'm not sure, but we see Sekhmet. We see who is possibly Geb and Newt, and maybe even Shu and Tefnut. But we have 12 judges there. And although it appears to be 10 rows, row 7 and row 10 has two Was scepters. So we have 12 judges. And this is where we get the origins of our 12 judges. So we wonder if Brother Ani is going to go through and make it through the 12 gates. We're going to assume he's a good guy, good heart. And so he's going to make it through the first stage of the weighing of the heart ceremony. Whereas if we look at this as a collective, APEP back there, that is the combination of the crocodile and whatever else he is, three different animals. I forget the crocodile, the hippo, and the I don't know, leopard or what have you. That's APEP, and he's back there waiting for the collective, like, yeah, come on, I've been waiting on that ass. So we got some work to do. So, however, if we get through the 13 gates to include the I don't want to call it a house, but Ophiuchus, before we go through the rebirth through the sign of Sagittarius. We'll say call Ophiuchus the sign of Ophiuchus. And so if we are successful in the resurrection, the Tekken is the excuse me, the symbol that uh, represents the rebirth. It represents the divine spark that is responsible for conception. And you see here, he's broken through the last gate, or he's made it through the gates, because you have to have a password and recognize and all of this when you're going through the duat. But he's gone through the aspect. He's made something out of chaos, something out of nothing. And I don't want to say nothing because you have all this potential here. That divine spark has traveled through all of this potential, all of this possibility, and so forth. And all this symbolism is the possibility. But if we follow a certain path, which is the path of the middle path, the path of truth, and the path of light, we can be successful in our emergence. And so we have the Ankh here as representation of that rebirth. And this particular Ankh is pretty much an ornament, and it is ornamented with Kanun here at the bottom, ready to fashion the new incarnate on the potter's wheel, because Kanun is the netter of the Nile. He's able to combine the soil and water, and out of clay, fashion new physical body. And of course, Ptah is providing the life force energy. And so once man, or once the form is established, it's up to the individual to pursue themselves, get to know themselves, and pursue enlightenment. And above Kanun here, you have the Badet, the wings of Ma'at, or the Badet, which is over every temple on the Giza Plateau, which makes it known that when you cross this threshold here, this is a place of enlightenment. And so, as the person receives enlightenment and becomes conscious, they're able to see the light. And so, here's Kanun here, fashioning man on the potter's wheel. There's Kanun, and I'm not sure what this particular headdress is, and I couldn't find it anywhere, but it's obviously representative of the two lands, because you have the cobra on either side. Everything is about duality here. It's about the mirror image, and knowledge of self. And so you have the sun in the middle. What I found was it is the headdress of the sunset, something of that nature, but I wasn't satisfied with that explanation. So if you're watching this video, you're a viewer, you understand that you can explain that in the comment section, by all means, please put it in the comments. but it's showing here that your beauty is not just physical, that it is your soul. So that's where we get the beauty on the inside and outside. And so as we become enlightened, we see here this is the representation of that enlightenment, where we have Kepra, the scarab beetle, has achieved the noonday sun, has achieved the power of the noonday sun. So it wasn't about worshiping the sun, it was about recognizing the power of the sun. Okay, so Kepra has buried its eggs in the dung, rolled it up the hill, and now it has a new sun and has achieved uh, its objective, and therefore has earned its wings of Ma'at. It's balanced there on the sun. It has balance and order, and this is verified and co-signed by the serpents of knowledge flanking the sun. Their tails actually wound in the symbol of infinity. And so we call this the winged disc. And it is indicative of where we get the idea of the winged individual, the angel of the angles, the seraphim and cherubim. And so that's it for today, family. We went way over the time, but I do appreciate you hanging in, and hopefully it was interesting to you. And by all means, please like the video, share the video, consider becoming a subscriber, and thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Y'all take a night, all right? Peace.